On today's show, the Rockets beat the Wizards behind 62 combined points from Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün, as well as a near triple-double from Reed Sheppard, including some career highs. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we're talking about the Rockets' 123-118 win against the Wizards, a game in which Reed Sheppard had his fingerprints all over the game on both sides of the ball. Arguably the Rockets' best two-way force in this game, a near triple-double, including a career high in assists and steals. Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün combining for 62 points. They also combined for 14 turnovers. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Amen Thompson's injury and what it means for the rotation moving forward. Tari Eason getting ejected. A lot happened in this game. I'm going to get to all of it on today's show. Of course, I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. First things first, the final score of this game does not do the game justice. The Rockets were in firm control of this game for pretty much the most, basically from about, I don't know, early second quarter when they kind of took off, or midway through the second quarter. They lost the first quarter 30-26 because Washington just could not miss from downtown. And that trend kind of continued throughout the whole game. I mean, Washington wound up shooting a blistering 19 of 35 from downtown. 54%, and they still managed to lose because they shot so much worse from two than they did from three. And yeah, I mean, it was a weird game because Washington was so elite at shooting the basketball. And some of these shots were contested. Some of them were just falling out. Some of them were wide open early. Like, it was kind of a mess there in the first quarter, but Rockets were able to pull out the win. They were able to be the more effective team over the course of 4 quarters. Solid overall win. And it was like 123-110 with like 70 seconds left. And then Washington reeled off like 8 straight points in a row to make the final score seem a lot closer than it actually was. But this thing was more or less, after the first quarter, a wire to wire blowout for the Rockets. Comfortable leads all the way throughout, playing from ahead, all that good stuff. Reed Sheppard was nothing short of sensational in this game. 19 points, 7 rebounds, 10 assists, 6 steals, 2 blocks. Career high in assists, career high in steals for Reed. Just 7 of 18 overall shooting, another 4 of 11 game from downtown, which is a really respectable mark from 3. Only 3 of 7 inside the arc, and you'd like that number to be a little bit better, but starting to put some things together. And when you factor in the sheer stat counts elsewhere across the board, right? The rebounds, the assists, the stocks, 6 steals and 2 blocks, and only 3 turnovers to go along with the 10 assists. There's a solid argument that Reed Sheppard was the best player on the floor for the Rockets in this game. And the argument that I've maintained for why Reed Sheppard should start, and the argument for when you look at just the overall success of the Rockets team when Reed Sheppard starts, I think the proof is just in the pudding. Everybody else clicks back into their roles so seamlessly when Reed Sheppard is in the Rockets starting lineup. Everything feels like it just comes easier to the rest of the guys on the floor. They're now 7-2 with Reed Sheppard in the starting lineup. And the #1 thing that matters the most, right, is just how much easier life looks for Alperen Şengün when they actually play through Reed Sheppard. It's funny. This game started with like the first handful of possessions, right? First 2 or 3 possessions were just bad offensive possessions. Like the very first one was, I think, an Amen Thompson midi and then a Şengün midi, or vice versa. Like it was just bad offense, right? settling for mid-range jumpers from either of those two guys is just, it's a win. It's a net win for the defense, and it's bad offense for the Rockets. And then they put the ball in Reed's hands and let him run some offense. And holy crap, all of a sudden things started looking good. He was running 2-man game with Alperen and Şengün, and suddenly Şengün went from having, what was a really rough start to this game. He had 2 or 3 early turnovers. He had some missed shots, some bunnies at the rim, that kind of stuff. And then suddenly they were running the 2-man game between Şengün and Reed Sheppard, and Reed was hitting Şengün on the roll. He was getting him, passes over the top. He was finding him when he sealed his man down low, making the extra swing pass, looking for him early in transition, like all these different things that Reed Sheppard brings to the table. And ultimately, it's because Alperen Şengün, it's like having a dance partner, right? Alperen Şengün has been expected to do, a couples dance by himself all season, basically, because a big man without a legitimate pick and roll partner or a pick and roll threat to pair with is going to ultimately be pretty, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but just there's going to be some inherent limitations on how good a big can be without a guard to be able to help set him up. And so much of this season, Alperen Şengün has needed to, face up from the perimeter and drive and attack and get to his little patented spin moves or post up and really, dribble the air out of the ball and eat up 8, 10, 15 seconds of the shot clock to try and get to his spots, because he doesn't have anybody outside of realistically Kevin Durant to be able to set him up consistently, at least not until recently, until we started seeing more of the Alperen Şengün Reed Sheppard 2-man game. Because when you run Alperen Şengün Amen Thompson pick and roll, it just doesn't work, because nobody cares about Amen Thompson. They give him tons of space, and they go under on every single screen, and it doesn't provide the same level of rolling downhill threat from Şengün, because the secondary defender in the pick and roll doesn't care. Meanwhile, with Reed Sheppard, you see the attention to detail. You see how defenses are treating him as a legitimate threat from the perimeter, that shooting gravity, that passing gravity. It's on display every single time they run a pick and roll, and Reed has gotten better and better. And this is one of my biggest gripes for this Rocket season, is the Rockets should have been spamming Alperen Şengün Reed Sheppard pick and roll 40 games ago. So I guess it's better late than never to see it start taking off now. But it's also wildly disappointing, because Ime Udoka said before the game, before tip-off even happened, he'd already made up his mind that next game against the Golden State Warriors on Thursday night, the Rockets are going back to the quote-unquote original lineup, which that's probably just code for Jabari Smith Jr. replaces Reed Sheppard and they go back to that version of the starting lineup. It could also maybe mean Josh Okogie gets reinserted into the starting lineup in place of Tari Eason, and he moves back to the bench, and then Reed Sheppard is also back to the bench. Who knows? But I still, to this point, cannot fathom how the coaching staff looks at what Reed Sheppard brings to the table as a starter and thinks, nah, we'll move him back to the bench. He unlocks everybody else. Even Kevin Durant in this game looked like he had a much easier time not having to orchestrate nearly as much of the Rockets offense. And then when it was time for KD to just step up and be KD and start taking over the game and knocking down shots in the third quarter, he had plenty of juice. He had plenty of gas in the tank to do so. And honestly, this game could have, we'll talk about the turnovers of Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün here in a moment. It could have cleaned that up as well. Could have ran even more offense through Reed Sheppard, who does a good job taking care of the basketball, a low turnover percentage, a good assist to turnover rate for Reed Sheppard, and maybe cut down on some of those 14 turnovers that KD and Alp committed throughout this game as well. So Reed Sheppard continues to impress. He continues to shine when given opportunity. And it's so important for the Rockets to continue to give him as many minutes as possible. He actually led the team with 42 minutes played in this one. And, Ime was letting him out there. Ime kept him out there, gave him a chance to maybe rack up the triple-double. He was only 3 rebounds away, ultimately couldn't get it done. He was also 3 blocks away from a 5x5, which is kind of nuts to think about. And then you factor in the actual stat line. Rockets players in the entire history of the Rockets organization, Rockets players with 15+ points, 7+ rebounds, 10+ assists, 5+ steals in a single game. James Harden has done it 8 times. John Lucas has done it twice. Hakeem's done it. Stevie Franchise did it. Scottie Pippen did it. And now Reed Sheppard's done it. It's a very short list of some absolutely incredibly elite players down that list. Every single one of them, Hall of Famers, except for, I guess, Stevie Franchises. Wait, is John Lucas a Hall of Famer? Now I'm blanking on that. I should know this off the top of my head, and I don't. That is very embarrassing. Albeit still incredibly elite company to be a part of for Reed Sheppard. And yeah, it's against the Wizards, so you take it with a grain of salt, but reps are reps. And getting these good quality reps, getting good reps, and even against bad teams are ultimately going to pay dividends and help out long term as Reed and Alp continue to build and establish their chemistry in the two-man game, and as Reed continues to build and establish his chemistry with everybody else. And it's just a shame that Ime Udoka has already, unfortunately, stubbornly made up his mind that Reed Sheppard is going back to the bench when it's just clear as day to everybody except for him, apparently, that Reed Sheppard is the answer to so many of the Rockets' weaknesses that they've displayed this season, especially on the offensive end. And they are a better defensive team with Reed Sheppard out there. He is no longer a defensive liability. Will he get picked on occasionally? Will bigger guys maybe try to take advantage of him? Yes. But he has gotten so much better on that side of the floor that I'm tired of hearing that as any kind of an excuse for Reed Sheppard at this point not playing games. His offense is too important. The team needs his production on that end. They need to just lean into it. And it's growing even more frustrating every passing day that they don't just embrace it. Coming up, I do want to talk about the performances from Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün combining for 62 points, but also 14 turnovers. We'll also talk about Amen Thompson's injury, Tari Eason's ejection, and all the other elements from this game. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open when the pressure's on and you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you are looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Get Locked On Rockets ad-free with our Everydayer Club, plus a members-only Discord with access to other Rockets fans to talk about the team, to discuss everything going on. Check the link in the episode description to learn more. Continuing on here, let's talk about the performances from Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün against this injury-plagued Wizards squad. 30 points for Kevin Durant on 8 of 15 shooting. A relatively quiet night, all things considered, for KD. 8 of 15 shooting, 3 of 6 from downtown, 11 of 11 at the free throw line. A perfect 11 of 11 there. 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block. The 6 turnovers was just kind of the really egregious part of his game. And then for Alperen Şengün, 32 points, 12 of 20 shooting, 0 of 1 from 3, 8 of 11 at the free throw line, 13 total rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, and then the 8 turnovers. The turnovers continue to be such a major dilemma for this Rockets team. And I get it. Like, this is one of those kind of, okay, they played down to the level of their opponent, sort of, and yada, yada. But you just expect more from your star players. You expect them to be more careful with the basketball. You expect them not to have some of these really sloppy, lazy turnovers. It's stuff like dribbling into a double team and then picking up your dribble, or premeditating a pass that you think is going to be there, and then a defender jumps the gap. And it's not even like, first off, it's not like the Wizards are a good defensive team. No disrespect to the Wizards. Like, they're not. They're one of the worst teams in the NBA. They're tanking. And aggressively so. And so it's not like they're doing anything crazy or running any super hardcore aggressive defensive schemes to try and turn the Rockets over. Hell, they were guarding KD and Şengün in single coverage most of the night. Like, it's not even like the Wizards were actively double teaming these guys. And Alperen Şengün was getting shown up by what's his name? Julian Reese, Angel Reese's brother. Like, he had a couple strips on Alperen Şengün on like post ups just because he timed it right and he predicted when Şengün would hit his little spin move and turn towards the basket, that kind of thing. Or just, Şengün would start backing down a defender and then suddenly, a guy would try to run over and swarm him really quick. And I guess that's technically a double team, but like, I don't know. It was just one of those where both KD and Şengün were so sloppy with with taking care of the basketball in this game. And you chalk it up, you're just like, it's the Wizards. Who cares? Like, whatever. Good teams don't do this. Like legitimate championship caliber teams don't mess around and not take care of the basketball. Like, they legitimately value these possessions. And yeah, they might not have their foot on the gas pedal, going 100 miles an hour against a bad team like Washington. But at the same time, they don't just phone it in. I think sometimes the way that the Rockets do when they play down to their level of down to their level of competition. And it really does start with KD and Şengün. Like, if those two guys aren't taking care of the basketball, right, if they're committing a ton of turnovers, then that's one, turnovers are infectious, right? Suddenly the rest of the team is committing turnovers. And this continues to be the Achilles heel of this Rockets team. The turnovers for KD, the turnovers for Şengün are a big problem. And the fact that they were such a problem against the Wizards, you can't just look at it and be like, it's the Wizards, we're just goofing off and we'll be serious like when we play against, the Thunder or the Spurs. No, they need actual practice reps against every team they can get their hands on, not turning the ball over. Like, this needs to become like point number one on like Rockets, like game plan. Can't call it, I don't want to call it scouting report, but basically just like take care of the basketball, right? Like, keys to the game, take care of the ball. There is absolutely no reason that the Rockets shouldn't have just blown out the Wizards by 30 plus points and been able to rest their starters the entire fourth quarter. Like, that's what should have happened against Washington. That's what should happen against every bad team for this Rockets squad. Instead, they turn the ball over 14 times between Şengün and KD, giving the Wizards tons of life, giving them extra opportunities, giving them chances to score off of those Rockets turnovers. They turned it over 21 times as a team to the tune of 39 Wizards points. Like, again, we saw them do this recently against, who was it? The Kings, maybe. Or maybe it was a Kings or Jazz, one of them, right? And it's like, okay, cool. Like, you beat them, but against literally any other halfway decent team, even like a middling, like play-in team, whatever, like an 8th, 9th seed, whatever. If you turn the ball over 20 plus times and give up 39 points on turnovers, like, you're probably losing that game. And so there needs to be a level of urgency from the coaching staff and from and like top down, from coaching staff to the players, all the way from player 1 through player 15 on the roster, to take better care of the basketball. And it's really funny that in a game where Reed Sheppard was as effective as he was, facilitating, taking care of the ball, setting up teammates, having some really impressive passes, that they didn't just lean further into it. I mean, they did. Like, they embraced Reed Sheppard, but there's also possessions where, Kevin Durant just decides, I'm KD, I want the ball. There's also possessions where Alperen Şengün is calling for the ball in a post up, and Reed Sheppard, because he's the young kid on the block, right, he acquiesces, and he's just like, all right, fine, Alp wants the ball, I'll defer to Alp, right? He's my star. I'll do what he says. And frankly, that's a failing of the coaching staff, because, like, especially once you see Alp continue to turn it over in the ways that he was turning it over, then you try something different, right? Just run the offense through the guy that knows how to take better care of the basketball. And that's not to say you can't ever, it's not to say you don't ever want the ball in the hands of KD or Şengün. Obviously, they're your stars. They're going to handle the rock a bit, but through a combination of those guys being more intentional about taking care of the ball, but also being smarter about how they attack and how they initiate their offense in the first place, could lead to cutting down on these turnovers considerably. And yeah, it maybe doesn't matter against the Wizards or the Jazz or the Kings, whatever. You can get away with it against the bad teams. You cannot get away with this against good teams. And the Rockets, to this point in the season, have not shown the ability to just flip the switch and be like, oh, okay, we'll take care of the basketball against good teams. Who cares? No, they're susceptible to turn it over against all 29 of the teams in the association. And that is debilitating, knowing that on any given night, the Rockets struggle that badly to take care of the basketball. Coming up, I do want to share final thoughts on this game, talk about Amen Thompson's injury, Tari Eason and Trae Young's ejections from this one, and any final thoughts that I got on this one. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles that they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being, and honestly, that goes for all of us. When I think about women, right, I think about my mom, right? I think about how important my mom is to me, how much she's done for me in my life, how I wouldn't be the person that I am today without my mom's unconditional love, support, guidance, wisdom, all of that. And it makes me think about how much she deals with in her life, right? How much she carries without always opening up about it or saying so. And it kind of makes me think how many of us are doing the same thing. The roles that we play, the expectations we carry, the pressure that we don't always talk about. Therapy can help with all of that, creating balance, setting healthy boundaries, and supporting your overall well-being. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read. You can mix spreads, totals, player props to match exactly how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Or maybe you just want a bit of a simpler bit of action getting on right now. The UH Cougars plus 1,200 to win the NCAA championship this season. So go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season long. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's talk a little bit about, first off, Amen Thompson, the injury. It looked like he tweaked his ankle and left the game early, unfortunately. Rough because he had a really stellar game, 22 points, 10 to 15 shooting, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, only 2 turnovers. And he did a lot. He did a substantial amount of his damage playing off ball in this one, because it's fantastic just how everybody else slots back into their roles. Alperen Şengün gets to become the big man screener and the short roll threat, and Reed Sheppard feeds him in pick and roll. And then Amen Thompson goes back to playing out of the corners or in the dunker spot and cutting. Kevin Durant gets to be the ultimate release valve, and he got some wide open shots as a result of it. But it's disappointing that Amen Thompson gets hurt, and hopefully it's nothing serious, and they've got a couple days off before their next game against the Warriors. But this could also just be another silver lining where, all right, Jabari Smith Jr. is supposed to be back for the Warriors game, but if Amen Thompson's about to miss some time, then congratulations, Reed Sheppard. I guess you get to stay in the starting lineup, even though Ime Udoka wants to move you back to the bench. Like, that's just the reality of it is, unfortunately, like it's almost like the basketball gods are taunting Ime Udoka, saying, we're going to keep injuring your players until you keep Reed Sheppard in the starting lineup. Like, that's just what it feels like at this point. So hopefully it's nothing serious for Amen Thompson, and hopefully he's, got a fast recovery and he'll be back. Hopefully he doesn't miss any time and he just gets to be back for the Warriors game. But also, I wouldn't be upset with Amen Thompson missing one more game and giving Reed Sheppard one more chance to start and show just how much better the Rockets look with him in the starting lineup. So we'll see how that ultimately plays out. No medical update for Amen after the game, or at least not one that I saw from anybody on the ground in DC. Tari Eason also is so weird. Like, Tari Eason got into it with Jameer Watkins, and we didn't actually, I even rewound a couple minutes and didn't see anything that stood out. So I think Jameer Watkins was just talking trash to Tari Eason. And then there was a play where Tari walks up, And as the Rockets are initiating their half-court offense, Tari just shoves him, just knocks him straight down. And Aaron Holiday had the basketball in his hands when it happened, and everybody kind of froze expecting the whistle to blow, and then like it didn't. And so Aaron Holiday just drove the ball in and like did it like a little kind of like scoop layup right at the cup because he didn't have anybody holding him. And then it led to kind of like this little like, hullabaloo, scuffle, whatever at midcourt, because they came back and they were starting to play defense, and then they kind of got separated by another Wizards player. And then, a scrum happened in the middle of the floor. The refs went and reviewed everything. And ultimately, Tari Eason was charged a double technical because he shoved Watkins the first time, which should have just been ruled like an offensive foul on the floor or whatever, but it was ruled no call, and so they ruled it a technical upon review. And then they gave Tari another technical for shoving Watkins again later in the skirmish. Watkins received a technical, so those were offsetting, but Tari, unfortunately receiving the two, gets ejected. And it first off, it really makes you wonder what the hell did Watkins say to Tari to get him so incensed, because Tari was like legitimately pissed. Like Tari was angry. And for the most part, Tari's like a sweet guy. Like he's, on the court, he's a demon, right? He's locked in and he's a different player on the court, but like he is one of the nicest guys on the Rockets roster. And so for him to be like that heated in a game, Watkins must have said something to him that pissed him off, like something that stepped over the line, honestly. No idea what it was. Haven't seen any commentary on either side about what happened afterwards. But the funniest thing in that entire exchange is the fact that Trae Young, who has not suited up for the Wizards once yet this season since the trade, was ejected because he stepped off the bench and walked on the court during the exchange. And that's an automatic technical and an ejection. And so Trae Young's first ever statistic for the Washington Wizards is a technical foul and being ejected from a game that he wasn't even playing in, which is low-key hilarious. Like that's kind of funny to think about. And that'll be a fun piece of Wizards and or Trae Young trivia down the line for fans to enjoy for years to come. But it was just such a weird kind of bizarre like sequence. And again, Rockets were coasting in this game, so it's not like they like sorely missed Tari or anything. And also, unfortunately, Tari has not been playing his best basketball as of late. Like the hot 3-point shooting has like seemingly completely cooled off. Some of that might be because he's not getting as many corner threes as he was getting earlier in the season. It seems like he's taking more of his threes now from, kind of from the slot or just, above the break essentially. And Tari hasn't been nearly as efficient from those spots on the 3-point line as he has been the actual corners. And so I do think there needs to be a focus on getting Tari back to being in the corners and getting more of those 3-point corner shots. Generating corner threes that's one of the best shots in all of basketball. And so if the Rockets are able to find ways to engineer more of those shots for Tari Eason, you've got Tari taking corner threes. Kevin Durant's a threat from anywhere around the arc because he's Kevin frickin' Durant. And then you have Reed Sheppard spacing the floor, elsewhere on the 3-point line. Those are three very reliable 3-point shooters, or at least on paper they are, even if Tari hasn't been quite as reliable as of late. And then when you're playing through Alperen Şengün down low, or you're running the pick and roll, like it spaces things out. It works well. So hopefully Tari is able to kind of shake off that shooting rust and get back to how he was shooting earlier in the season. But at the same time, weirdly enough, every time Tari has like a down stretch or whatever, if he has an injury or whatever, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, man, this could save the Rockets some dollars. Like if you're not having to give Tari Eason $25 or $30 million per year contract at the end of the season, there will probably still be some team out there that comes along and offers him the bag because of how he played this year, even with the injury concerns, even if he doesn't end the season shooting as hot as he did to start the year. Clearly he's put in a lot of work on that 3-ball, and he's legitimately one of the better 3-and-D wings in the entire association at this point in his career. But he's also kind of a wild card at times, right? With like the crash out over whatever happened. And he has moments where he, the chaos that he brings to the court, oftentimes for the better, but sometimes for the worse, can maybe derail some possessions or, destabilize a game if you just need him to be straight up for a little bit. But anyways, just I thought the Tari thing was weird. I'm curious. If you saw what happened, because like I rewound a few plays back and I didn't see anything between Watkins and Tari that like would have like warranted this type of reaction, at least nothing like a shove or a trip or a cheap shot or any crap like that. Let me know if you saw something in the game. Like, let me know in the YouTube comments, because I'm very curious, because I didn't notice anything. And then the last like couple things here, just one thing that does stand out, and just funny enough, there are still like some like Reed Sheppard detractors who don't believe in his ability to play point guard. And like, I understand that he's like, even at Kentucky, right? He's essentially a shooting guard, right? But like, the one thing that I would point to when highlighting like just the key differences between how the offense looks when Amen Thompson is initiating offense versus how the offense looked when Reed Sheppard is initiating offense. First off, you don't see Amen Thompson make half the passes that Reed Sheppard does offensively. Like, Reed Sheppard will hit the cross, the cross court corner skip pass out of a pick and roll. Reed Sheppard had one pass where he caught the ball. Kevin Durant overshot him on a pass, and Reed Sheppard had to jump to catch it to keep it from going out of bounds. And he threw the ball while midair down to Alperen Şengün, who had the seal on his man and was able to get, able to score immediately off the pass. And like, obviously Amen Thompson does some crazy stuff with the ball and has some high level passes of his own right. Absolutely. But it's more just like a natural feel for the point guard position and facilitating and getting other guys involved. And the number one thing that I would actually point to is Reed Sheppard is constantly surveying the floor to the point where, I mean, at every single game, Reed Sheppard has sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 kick ahead passes where the moment he gets the ball, whether it's he rebounds the ball and then he looks up in transition, or somebody passes the ball ahead to him after they get the rebound, the first thing he does is surveys the floor to see who is down court and do I have a touchdown pass to make to get us an easy bucket in transition if the defense is asleep. I don't remember the last time Amen Thompson rifled a pass down the floor because he was aware that there was a man down there, like that he had a teammate that was, cherry picking, snowbirding, whatever you want to call it. And that speaks volumes about like Reed's ability to like his court awareness, his court vision, all of that. And again, like, I'm not actually, let me brief this. I am out on the Amen Thompson full-time point guard experiment, at least under this team's current construction. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And the more that the Rockets can continue to commit to it, the more that they smash their head against the walls and hope that it just works out, I think it's just ultimately for the worst. It's a disservice to Amen Thompson. It's a disservice to everybody else on the team. And when you see these games, and Amen's had plenty of these, right, where he's, had games this season where he's been more like the old Amen Thompson, right? The Amen Thompson from last season when he stepped into the starting lineup and was playing that off-ball elite cutter, Swiss Army knife roll, whatever. That's when he's at his deadliest. It allows him to be that insane defensive force. It allows him to be an elite offensive force. It allows him to tap into his offensive rebounding. It allows him to be a dynamic secondary creator. All these net positive benefits from Amen Thompson playing off the ball. And then you don't really gain much, if anything. In fact, you lose a lot by putting him on the ball. And so I'm going to keep talking about it until I'm blue in the face. I'm going to keep talking about it until you're sick of hearing me talk about it, because that continues to be one of the biggest, most frustrating storylines of this Rockets season, is that we are now 60 games into the calendar year and they are still trying to plug away with the Amen Thompson point guard experiment when it's clearly not working out to the level at which everybody would have hoped that it would have by now. And they have another prospect, another young player, another high draft pick, another top 4 pick, number 3 overall, obviously, in Reed Sheppard, that they have to this point refused to truly empower and embrace. Pardon me. Despite all the evidence that shows that he is more or less the missing piece for this Rockets team this season. Obviously, a much lower floor than Fred VanVleet, because Fred is a veteran. He's steady. He's been there. He's done that. He knows how to take care of the basketball. He doesn't get scared in the big moments. He's had plenty of experience going through almost every version of basketball that you can think of, the highs, the lows, all of it. But Reed Sheppard needs those reps. And in a season that is, more or less lost at this point, per the words of General Manager Rafael Stone, why isn't he getting those reps? So I'm curious your thoughts. Give me your thoughts on this Rockets win against the Wizards. What do you think about Reed Sheppard's performance? What did you think about the 62 points from KD and Alperen and Şengün, as well as the turnovers from those two, about Tari Eason's crash out, all that good stuff? Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.